All right, now we're going to go over that worksheet, and hopefully at this point, this stuff is so simple to you, especially after you've been able to help your group members or your group members helped you, and hopefully all this is really simple. Now, the first three problems I had on the page had illustrations, and they didn't ask you to justify each step. And I just try to keep it simple that way. For these, we're just going to try to solve for the variables. Is all that our goal is. And so for this first one, we can see that these are supplementary angles. And so we know then that 5x plus 11 plus 14x minus 2 must add up to be 180 degrees. We know that 5x and 14x is going to give me 19x. 11 and negative 2 is going to give me positive 9. So now we've got 19x plus 9 equals 180. We can subtract the 9 from both sides and get 171. Divide both sides by 19 and we get 9. So therefore x is 9. Now you could double check this answer by plugging 9 in both right here and right here. 14 times 9 is 126. Minus 2 is 124. So it's saying that that angle is 124. 5 times 9 is 45. Plus 11 more is 56. And so then we go, yeah, 56 and 124 do in fact add up to be 180. So those two answers make sense, or those two angles make sense coming from the one answer that x is 9. All right, the next problem. We have this one where we have kind of a complicated situation, and some people attempted to go, well, hey, this angle and this angle are supplementary angles, and that's true. Or you could say that, these two angles are supplementary angles. Or you could say that these two angles are supplementary angles. But the problem with any of the supplementary pairs in this one is that it uses different variables. And so that won't work. So the only way to do this problem is to do it with vertical angles. These angles that are opposite of each other. Up there you have 8y plus 11, and on the bottom you have 10y minus 5 or minus 15. Right here we have 9x minus 16, and this one is 6x plus 11. So again, we have to use the fact that we have vertical angles. It's the only way we can solve these. So I'm going to start with this idea of setting 6x plus 11 equal to 9x minus 16. We could subtract 6x from both sides and get 11 equals 3x minus 16. Add 16 to both sides and get 27 is equal to 3x. So therefore 9 is equal to x, or in other words, x is equal to 9. All right. Again, we could plug that back in right here and right here, make sure we get the same values. 6 times 9 is 54, plus 11 more would be 65. 9 times 9 is 81. 81 minus 16 is, again, 65. So that answer makes sense. Okay? All right, let's roll into this other one using the other vertical angles, the ones I've highlighted in yellow. And we know that 8y plus 11 would equal 10y minus 15. Again, we could subtract 8y from both sides, which would leave us with 11 equals 2y minus 15. Add 15 to both sides, and we get 26 is equal to 2y. Divide both sides by 2, and y is 13. If you wanted to double check that answer, we could make sure that that answer makes sense. 10 times 13 is 130. Minus 15 is going to be 115. And up top, 8 times 13 is 104, plus 11 more is 115. 115, 115, that makes sense. Okay? All right, moving on. The third problem. We have a set of complementary angles. We know they're complementary angles because we see that together they make up that right angle right there. So we know that 2x plus 11 plus 8x minus 1 together must equal 90 degrees. 2x and 8x is 10x. 11 minus 1 is positive 10 equals 90. We can subtract the 10 from both sides, and we get 10x is equal to 80. So therefore, x is equal to 8 when we divide both sides by 10. All right, so those first three were really simple. All we had to do was identify what kind of situation we had going on in the picture and know what to do with that and how to set up those algebraic expressions and how we can create an equation out of it. Hopefully you were able to look at this and go, okay, clearly I can identify that to be supplementary angles. Clearly I can see that I've got vertical angles in this situation and complementary angles in this situation. And then obviously the key is that you know what to do with those. All right, now let's look at the next three. Here, you need to find the value of each variable and justify. You might not use all of the boxes. I tried to give you more room than what you might need, okay? But this is very similar to the three problems that we've already gone over from the homework last night. So we look at these and we say, okay, in the first box, I'm going to go ahead and say angle A and angle B are complementary angles. And the reason why, that is given. Secondly, I'm going to say the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B add up to be 90 degrees. Why? That's the definition of complementary angles. Two angles whose measures add up to be 90 is the definition. Then I'm going to go ahead and swap out, and instead of measure of angle A, I'm going to have 7x plus 15 plus 3x minus 5 equals 90. And that, as we saw before, is the substitution property of equality. Now the 7x and the 3x give me 10x. The 15 minus 5 also give me 10 equals 90. All I did right there was simplify. At this point, this can become 10x equals 80, and I should be able to ask you all why. How can we go from that previous step to that step? And it is we subtracted 10 from both sides, so it's the subtraction property of equality. And lastly, we should be able to say that x is equal to 8. And we get that because that is the division property of equality. And there you have it. Okay, next problem looks like this. Very similar to the second problem on the homework. Says, hey, both of these angles are supplementary. And then it gives the measures of both angles. So the very first thing I'm going to do is going to say, hey, angle A and angle B are supplementary angles. That is given information. So therefore, the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B add up to be 180 because that's the definition of supplementary angles. That's what it means to be supplementary. Okay? And then at that point, I can swap that out and say 7x plus 15 plus 3x minus 5 equals 180. And that is the substitution property of equality. The 7x and the 3x combine to make 10x. 15 minus 5 is 10 equals 180. And that all I did there was simplify. And now I can get to 10x equals 170. And again, if I was there with you, I would ask you, what is it I did from this step to get to this step? And everyone in the room should be able to tell me, I subtracted 10 from both sides. So that is the subtraction property of equality. All right, and next, I can get to x equals 17. And again, everyone in the room should be able to tell me, all I did was divide both sides by 10. So that is the division property of equality. Okay, hopefully as a group, you were able to get x equals 17, and hopefully as a group, you were able to follow these steps right here. All right, and lastly, the third problem. Again, just like the third problem on the homework, this is vertical angles. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, angle A and angle B are vertical angles. That is given. Now this one was where it went a little bit different than the other ones. Angle A is congruent to angle B. And that's not the definition of vertical angles, but that's because we proved that vertical angles are congruent. And if these angles are congruent, that would mean that their measures must be equal. Remember, angles can be congruent, but numbers can be equal, and the measure of an angle is a number. So these measures are equal, which is the definition of congruence, or definition of congruent angles. Either way you go. And at this point, we can substitute some things out. We could say 7x minus 15 is equal to 3x plus 25, and that is the substitution property of equality. We're going to go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides, and that's going to give us 4x minus 15 is equal to 25, and that is the subtraction property of equality. We'll go ahead and add 15 to both sides, and we get 4x is equal to 40 by the addition property of equality, because we added 15 to both sides to keep it equal. And lastly, we get x is equal to 10. And how did we get that? Because we divided both sides by 4 using the division property of equality. So hopefully that's the answer that you got as well. You got an answer of 10, and you were able to follow along with these justifications right here. All right. At this time, we're going to go ahead and take a quiz. It's going to look remarkably like this sheet that you just worked on together in that group. And you all should be very successful at it. All right. Good luck.